Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. So great to be along with you. Listen, Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman, I think that's a ridiculous term, by the way. This is the husband of Vice President Kamala Harris, is facing some serious allegations. This does not look good for the man that is apparently redefining masculinity. That, according to Jen Psaki, Joe Biden's former spokesperson, who now works at MSNBC, I believe. I'll play that clip for you in a second. But Doug Emhoff is accused of slapping his ex-girlfriend in 2012, witnessed by three friends of this woman. And apparently this all stems from her flirting with another man, and Emhoff gets so upset that he's outside of this place in the valet line during the Cannes Film Festival in France, and he slaps her so hard that she spins around. Now, this, folks, is a major problem for Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff. They're supposed to be the party and candidacy that respect women. But it appears to me that Doug Emhoff must have no respect for women. And what is so odd about this is typical of pansy men. Doug Emhoff is a beta male extraordinaire, okay? This guy is about as beta as it gets. If he wasn't married to Kamala Harris, I would think he's gay. Not that being married to a woman matters this day and age, but he comes off as very effeminate. I would not be surprised if this guy has homosexual tendencies. Now, this is often the case with weak men. See, they can't pick on a guy like me. They're not going to get in a fight with a bouncer at a bar. Not that you should be fighting anybody, but they can't have their way or get respect from alpha males who actually support and protect women. So they beat up on somebody that they can get over on, because the only people they're stronger than are most women. So the Daily Mail is reporting all of this, that the friends say that Emhoff had been dating this woman for 3 months, apparently, and they told her about the alleged violence at the time. A third friend told the Daily Mail that in 2014, she had dated Emhoff and recounted the full story of the alleged abuse. And then Senator Harris, at the time, was in the news grilling Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh over sexual assault allegations. Meanwhile, her husband had been going around beating up women. So the friends all asked not to be identified, of course, because you know what the Democrats do. They go after anybody who crosses them, and I'm sure these women would be right in the crosshairs of the Democrat Party. So this follows Daily Mail allegations that Emhoff cheated on his first wife and mother of his two kids around 2008. Who did he allegedly impregnate, according to the Daily Mail? The nanny to their daughter of his first wife, who also worked as her grade school teacher. So this is a real stand-up guy. If these allegations are true, he's slapping around women and impregnating his daughter's teacher / nanny. So all three of this alleged victims, the woman who got slapped at the valet stand, said she also told them about a disturbing alleged incident during the relationship with Emhoff, in which Emhoff nonchalantly admitted to impregnating the school teacher / nanny. Now, this is all according to friends who got this story. So they did not say how he was allegedly responsible for the miscarriage, and told Jane that the nanny's claims were false about this miscarriage. Who knows? I don't know. The second gentleman allegedly confessed to Jane that he paid Naylor's settlement around $80,000 and had the nanny sign a non-disclosure agreement. So did he send her for an abortion? Was it not a miscarriage? I don't know. So Jen Psaki comes out and says this to Doug Emhoff, which I find so unbelievable when you have all these allegations surrounding Doug Emhoff, beta male. He comes off as gay. Now we learn that he's allegedly beating up women. And Jen Psaki says this about redefining masculinity.
Your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
It's funny. I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this. And to me, it's the...
So you see how he sounds? He literally comes off as beta male. Very effeminate. But oftentimes, these weak men are the ones that will beat up women. The weaker you are, the more chance you have of trying to abuse those who are weaker than you because you have a complex about being weak. He fits all of the stereotypical attributes of a man who would do something like this. Now, Kamala Harris is not bright. She's not smart. She doesn't have good policies. But here's one thing I will tell you about Kamala Harris. I don't think she's letting a man beat her up. That's one thing I will give her. Doug Emhoff would get his ass kicked by Kamala Harris. So I don't think that's going on in this relationship now, but you never know. All of this is wild allegations. And certainly very hypocritical of Kamala Harris to be claiming that they're the party that supports women when really, in the end, they're not at all. Folks, I want to tell you about a new sponsor, by the way. This, folks, is Colonial Metals. Those close to retirement can't seem to catch a break today. Maybe it's you or it's a family member you're concerned about. It's time to take control of your future. Don't let bad policies and record inflation take your lifetime of hard work away. Our sponsor, Colonial Metals, helped me with my goal of protecting my financial future, having a self-directed IRA where I can safely store gold and silver, assets that have stood the test of time no matter what the economy or the government policies are. This makes sense, folks. Colonial Metals has helped so many of its customers create a self-directed IRA where you can have direct access to those assets. If you have an IRA, 401k, or another type of retirement account, here's what you need to do. Just go to freegoldguide.com/Stinchfield. freegoldguide.com/Stinchfield. Colonial Metals Group was founded on the same principles as our great country. They help Americans take control and safeguard their future. Their team of experts specialize in protecting your retirement with the most trusted store of wealth in human history, physical gold and silver. I love this investment. I really do. Go to freegoldguide.com/Stinchfield for your free Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit created specifically for our listeners and viewers. That's freegoldguide.com/Stinchfield or call 1-800-458-7356. That's 1-800-458-7356. Qualified applicants can receive up to $10,000 in additional silver to their account. Call now. Go to 1-800-458-7356 or freegoldguide.com/Stinchfield, freegoldguide.com/Stinchfield. And we are so happy for their support of this program, Colonial Metals, getting it done for us. And I'm looking forward to a long relationship with them. All right, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, folks, welcome to the program. I want to talk a little bit about the debate last night. And there were some key moments in all of this. The vice presidential debate, of course, I'm talking about with Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, by far the clear winner. And I think what J.D. Vance did best was come off as sincere and compassionate. This is a problem for Republicans that they don't often do a good job of coming off as sincere and compassionate. I believe this debate last night was about the women of America. So where I wanted J.D. Vance to be a little stronger against Tim Walz, I wanted him to hammer back about Walz's lying, hammer him about the Tiananmen Square stuff, hammer him on guns, hammer him on abortion. Vance didn't really do that, but I think it was by design. And I think the Trump campaign said, you know what, we're going to have a softer, gentler version of our vice presidential candidate than we do with President Trump. President Trump's got the tough guy down. So let's leave that to him and let's come off as softer. And I think the women of America took away that J.D. Vance did a good job with that and came off as a very likable guy. My very special lady friend who is, you know, your quintessential suburban white mom, she loved Vance and she didn't know a lot about him going into this debate. And she thought that he was great. So Walz, on the other hand, had a whole slew of problems. Walz had this issue, of course, with the Tiananmen Square. He said he was in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre. It turns out he was in Nebraska. He claims he misspoke. This is them asking him about it and is dodging the question.
During the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska.
All right, folks. Here comes, I grew up in a small town where we had grass in the front yard, and look at me, I'm a working class guy. Not answering the question. In fact, he goes on for at least a minute not answering the question.
Town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people.
You hear what he just said? I'm a knucklehead at times. That's the first time I ever heard in any kind of a debate, all the way down to debate for who's going to be the next dog catcher, where the candidate claims I'm a knucklehead at times. Now, if you're out to dinner with your friends and you claim you're a knucklehead and you're explaining, maybe that's endearing. On a stage like this, where you're trying to court the vote of others, and you have social media that is going to clip every little thing from you, I'm a knucklehead at times does not come off well. In fact, that's the last thing you want to say, because that's what came around. Oh, no, it's not the last thing you want to say. The last thing you want to say is I'm friends with school shooters, which clearly Tim Walz misspoke when he said that. But I'm friends with school shooters is now the number one trending topic when you look at the clips from the debate last night. I'm friends with school shooters is there. But again, here he continues on this until the moderator questions him on this, and he does not really give a valid answer.
I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric, sure that I'm working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you about COVID, do the best you can for your community there and letting your folks being a good.
Question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Ooh, how brutal is that? In the end, it's cringeworthy. He knows he lies. Now, that's where I wanted Vance to come in and say, well, if you lie about that, if you lie about serving in combat when you never were in combat ever, if you lie about being a command sergeant major when you've been demoted from command sergeant major because you never finished your schooling, if you lie about those things, what else are you lying about, Tim, that we don't know about? And what else are you going to be willing to lie about if, God forbid, you're vice president of the United States? It's a very, very simple question, very simple answer, but he didn't pounce on that. And again, I think it may have been by design that he didn't pounce. They didn't want Vance to come off as looking mean in any of this. Now, Vance did a great job here. Now, I say that because in this clip, it was one of the times when J.D. Vance did a good job of exposing Tim Walz as a liar, as a teller of mistruths, as speaking propaganda, twisting the facts. Listen.
If you notice, what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
that's a gross generalization.
that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I think that's a great way of portraying the policies of President Trump and calling out the Biden-Harris administration, the Harris administration, for their failures. And there were lots of failures. Now, one of the things that I thought was so bad were the moderators. The moderators were the big losers in this debate. And I want to explain why I tell you that the moderators were the big losers in all of this, because it wasn't always what they were asking, though that was part of it. It's what they didn't ask that was part of it. It was the topic choices. So, of course, they choose, let's talk about abortion and make Republicans look bad. We lose on that issue. I'm going to admit it. I'm 100% pro-life, but I'm going to tell you the majority of Americans probably don't stand with us on that. And so that's an issue that's not great for us to talk about, okay? Climate change. Now, I don't know where the majority of Americans stand on climate change. I think the majority of Americans actually think that climate change is not their issue. I think the majority of Americans realize that this is not something they need to worry about. J.D. Vance gave a great answer on climate change, but then they talk about, quote, gun violence. That's a left-wing term. And they talked about January 6th. That's designed to slam Republicans. What did they not talk about? I would have liked to have seen the moderators ask Tim Walz, there's been 2 assassination attempts on President Trump's life. You had the congressional baseball game, other violent events that seem to be all carried out by Democrats. How do you explain that when you call Republicans the party of violence when in reality it's Democrats committing the violence? I would have liked to have seen him explain that. They didn't ask about energy policy. Why? Because Republicans win on that. I would have liked of them to ask about energy policy. Why didn't they ask Tim Walz when you and Kamala Harris say you're reimagining police and you let Minneapolis burn during the protests, the George Floyd protests, would you let America burn as commander in chief if, God forbid, you got to that office, or as vice president? They didn't ask that question. No bail policies. People in cities like Minneapolis and other big cities across the country don't feel safe, much of it because of Democrat policies that are weak on crime. What do you say to those people who are scared to go out of their homes? None of those questions were answered. In fact, the exact opposite happened. The exact opposite happened. They prompted Vance as to what to say and how to respond from J.D. Vance. I am going to tell you about that in just a moment. But before I do, I want to tell you about my friends over at get21now.com. Get 21% annualized interest rate on your investment. This is about Bitcoin, but it's not about the wild swings. You lock in with a contract with NFN8, which is the name of the company, get21now.com. You lock into this contract, and you can get up to 21%, depending on the investment choice you choose, up to 21% annualized interest paid monthly. This is mailbox money. Now it's direct deposited into my account, but it's mailbox money. So I knew I wanted to take part in Bitcoin and this craze, and I knew there's money to be had there. But I didn't want the wild swings. I look, it's up here, it's down there. But the secret's in the mining. So NFN8 has these industrialized warehouses where they mine Bitcoin. They mine it, sell it on the open market the next day. They pay you every month, as I said, up to 21%. There's no way you can get this interest locked in by a contract anywhere else. They've lived up to all their promises to me. I really like these guys. I urge you to pay them a visit. Find out about what they do. Go to get21now.com. Get21now.com. Fill out the form. They'll get right back to you and do what I did and start sitting back and collecting money. Literally, it's that easy when it comes to these guys. Get21now.com. All right. So I told you I would play you the clip where they literally prompt Tim Walz, these moderators, these devious moderators.
The vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children.
So since when you as a moderator you'd say, would you like to respond? Or you have 1 minute to respond, but you're prompting Tim Walz to respond? Would you like to say, he said they're using kids as drug mules. Come on, Tim, make sure you counter that. Here's the reality. They are using kids as drug mules. There's no doubt in my mind that they're using kids as drug mules. And then the fentanyl, she is allowing fentanyl into this country. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Why? They stopped construction of the wall. They stopped remaining in Mexico. They took all of the Border Patrol agents off the line. They're now processing people that are coming through with this CBP1 app, and we'll get to that moment, which may be the number one moment in the debate for J.D. Vance. But here's Tim Walz following up what the moderator wanted him to follow up on.
Is not true, but I will say about the fentanyl, because this is a crisis of this, the opioid crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history, 30% decrease in Ohio. But there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the attorney general of the largest state.
Can I just say, just because there was a 30% decrease in fentanyl deaths are still up hundreds of percent. Like 800% under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden since taking office. So down 30% still means the fentanyl deaths since they took office are up by record numbers.
Border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this.
Do you know what else she prosecuted? Moms who had babies in the hospital with sickle cell anemia, young children, and she prosecuted them for truancy. She also prosecuted young black men for marijuana possession in record numbers, threw them in jail for it. So this is a woman that would not prosecute violent crimes, but she would go after people that really didn't deserve to be in jail.
Most of us want to solve this. And that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's seen. It was crafted by a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans.
See, some of the things that I wanted J.D. Vance to say, which he didn't say, is James Lankford is not a conservative. He comes from the most conservative state in the country, being Oklahoma. He's got political cover there to be a strong Freedom Caucus type guy. But Senator Lankford has turned into a total rhino. He sided with Democrats to craft this border bill, which wasn't a border bill at all. It was a foreign aid bill. It was about sending billions of dollars to Ukraine and other countries. Why is that in our border bill? J.D. Vance didn't mention that. And I think it was important to mention that's why members of Congress said no to this bill, because you were lumping in aid to Ukraine, which we've had enough with, and not fixing the situation on the border. He says that the agents wanted the bill, Border Patrol agents. No, they don't. Agents want remain in Mexico. Agents want to go back to working the line. They don't want to be process takers and literally form filler outers. They want to be law enforcement officers. It does not take money for them to do that. You replace remain in Mexico and all those things, you solve this problem. Congress is not needed here. But J.D. Vance didn't say any of that.
Worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce and the Wall Street Journal said, pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents. Detection for drugs. DOJ money to speed up these the adjudications on this.
All right, so he goes on and on about that. But here's where J.D. Vance did fact check. And when he did a great job, because he wasn't necessarily fact checking Tim Walz. He was fact checking the fact checkers. He was fact checking the moderators, who are not supposed to be fact checking at all, but that's all they did during this debate was fact check.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank you.
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
What an arrogant witch with a B, quite frankly. Arrogant. Condescending. Thank you for describing the legal process. I would offer up that it's not a legal process, that it's a process enacted by the Biden administration to do an end run around the legal process. So it is fake legal status by using an app on your phone. An app on your phone to come into the country. You fill it out. These people aren't vetted. They didn't apply for a green card. They were funneled from sneaking across the border through a port of entry. So now they can claim they're legal, and that the Biden-Harris administration can say border crossings, illegal boarding crossings dropped because they just declared every crossing legal. That's not right. It's not right by a long shot. So this is what is happening. And I would urge, I really would, I would urge everyone to do your own research. These moderators, they're not genuine, okay? These moderators may be devious. They may be out to sink them on purpose, but part of me, as a guy who spent 20 years in the mainstream media, most of it working for NBC, part of me, what I see from these are two women that have been so indoctrinated into the liberal way of thinking. They have drank the liberal Kool-Aid. I don't even think they realize they're being biased. I think these women think that this is how America thinks. Why? Because they're elitists and they're out of touch. They live in penthouses on Park Avenue, and they don't know what it's like to struggle as an American. And so this liberal way of thinking, I don't think they know how the border works. I don't think they know how President Trump's economic policy works and why. I certainly know they've never signed the front of paychecks. These people are out of touch. And so their liberalism infects their ability to do their job and do it fairly. And that is true. So I said you could use an app for the CBP One app. I would offer up, my friends over at Patriot Mobile ought to block the CBP One app on the phone. No, I'm teasing. But I have a Patriot Mobile phone, and I'm so grateful for it. I feel like I'm part of a team. I feel like I'm part of a group that believes we need to push the country in the right direction. And where you spend your money says a lot about how you want the country to go. Why would you spend money with the woke cell phone companies that engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that literally fund some of your money goes to funding places like Planned Parenthood and other liberal organizations designed to beat President Trump? When you could put your money with Patriot Mobile, you can choose the network you want, any of the three big networks. You get the same service on that front, but you get 100% U.S.-based customer service. You know, a portion of the money that every time you make a phone call is going to go to causes that will help move America in the right direction, help support our veterans and our first responders, and make sure our gun rights aren't infringed. This is what you get with Patriot Mobile, and great service. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for free activation. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Again, you can call them at 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, and tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right. Let me play one more clip because abortion was a topic. Of course it was. Of course abortion was a topic during the debate. Why? Because they knew Republicans have a hard time with this. I think J.D. Vance did a great job with his abortion responses. Take a listen.
Women should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as
I believe the woman he's talking about was Abby Thompson, if I have the name right. Now, she died, but she died after taking abortion pills. So the stories are never cut and dry like Tim Walz wants you to believe. Oh, she died because she couldn't get an abortion. She had seven. She died because something went wrong with the abortion pills. But again, you don't get that fact check from the moderators.
I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law. It says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their health care decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget, Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
Well, guess what, folks? I went and fact-checked it, and J.D. Vance is correct. In fact, since that law was enacted, 8 babies in Minnesota had been born with very serious conditions after an abortion was tried to be performed, and they were given no life-saving treatment. So they try to do this late-term abortion. The babies are born alive. 8 of them, in fact, in Minnesota. No real effort to save these babies' lives whatsoever. To me, I don't know how else to describe it but barbaric. I really don't. And Tim Walz is wrong on all of this. And again, I think J.D. Vance did a good job of remaining level-headed about this. Now, Tim Walz uses that old line, just mind your own business. But here's the thing. If you believe the baby in the womb is a human being, that baby didn't get a say in his right to life, okay? That baby didn't get a say. So when you say mind my own business, that would be the same as I'm walking down the street and I'm seeing a woman getting beat up by somebody and I do nothing, just mind my own business. I am about saving lives, whether it's an adult life, whether it's a child life, whether it's a baby's life, whether it's a baby in the womb's life. I want to preserve life, not take it. Minding my own business is not an option when it comes to somebody that is being victimized. And that's how I look at children in the womb. I know my leftist friends and liberal friends, which I have a smattering of, not very many. I know they wildly disagree with me on it, but truth is, I don't care. All right. So I want to turn now to Byron Donalds. This is a totally different topic off the debate. I think in the end, J.D. Vance did a great job, and I'm proud of him, and he's a great running mate for President Trump. Byron Donalds, the congressman from Florida, would have been a fabulous vice presidential running mate, and I think he can do a good job of talking to minority communities because he's a black man himself, obviously. He went on with Charlemagne the God, which I think is a ridiculous name for a radio host. There's only one God in my life. But Charlemagne has been a place for politicians to go. I like the idea of Byron Donalds going there. The reason why I like the idea of Byron Donalds going to Charlemagne the God's show is because he reaches an audience that needs to be reached, specifically African-American black folks, okay? This is Byron Donalds talking about inflation under Kamala Harris.
I would argue we're not really thriving right now. This inflation, which, by the way, was brought to us by Kamala Harris, has really slowed down people from being able to excel.
By Kamala?
Yes.
Vice president.
Oh, Charlemagne.
It's still the president.
Charlemagne, listen, man. When Joe Biden wanted to do his American Rescue Plan, Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate. She broke the tie that started this inflation that has hurt so many people in our country. Everybody listening to your show. It's not true?
First of all, it's
you sure you want to go there?
Tie-breaking vote.
You sure you want to go there?
Go outside, Congressman, when you go outside.
You sure you want to go there? Okay, let's go there.
You had it
You got notes. You got notes, Angela, right?
That's fine. I have notes too.
I'm gonna give it to Charlemagne.
Note I have today
I'm gonna give it to Charlemagne.
is that on
I don't
every
even want to
question
hold it.
I've asked,
because Angela, hold on now.
For every infrastructure project in your community,
you can go to
should
third
go
page
out
just to
and
highlight a
thank
portion.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Congress that voted for the American Rescue Plan.
Angela,
that's what should be happening.
Larry Summers wrote an op-ed back in 2021. Larry Summers was the Treasury Secretary for Bill Clinton. He was an economic advisor to Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. He said that the American Rescue Plan that Joe Biden wanted, that Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate, would create a massive inflation that we have not seen in a generation. Well, guess what? Larry Summers was correct. You know who also was correct, Angela? I was, because I was in the Budget Committee when they brought the bill. And I said in that committee, it's going to cause massive inflation. That's what happened. So the problem we have in our economy today is that prices have gone up massively. Wages adjusted for inflation is down. People's pocketbooks are hurting. But we have a presidential election in 40 days. So, and I'm gonna ask Envy this question. Envy, you're in the housing business as well. I know because I listen to the show. Interviewed. No, I'm just asking them a question. Chill, Angela. So I listen to the show. I know you do a lot of business in housing. Mm-hmm. Would you hire somebody that broke up stuff in one of your houses to fix the other houses?
No.
Exactly. She broke the economy.
I'm not going to do this morning, Byron.
Why are you not going to do this, Angela? Because I'm bringing facts. Hold on now. So now I'm bringing facts and you don't want to do it no more? Come on now, Angela. That's not right. I'm bringing facts. I thought we were going to have a fact-based conversation.
So you know what's great is Charlemagne stayed out of it. It actually is a sign of a very, very good radio host that he let that conversation play out, that clearly Byron Donalds won. If somebody breaks up your house, you going to hire that person to go fix other houses? No, they're irresponsible. Kamala Harris broke the economy, and she did it, of course, with that, quote, American Rescue Plan. It was the Inflation Increasing Act of America is what it was. And Byron Donalds was spot on all of it. Now, she doesn't have an argument because she's been told one story by the mainstream media where she gets her news. I applaud Charlemagne for letting Byron Donalds come in and not shutting Byron Donalds down when one of his cronies is getting beat down with facts, with words by Byron Donalds. This is why it's more important that Byron Donalds goes on this show, Charlemagne, than it is for him to come on this podcast or my Real America's Voice show. Because everything Byron Donalds says, you probably already know. And you remember in the beginning of that, and I let that whole clip play because I think it was just better off just to let it go than have me interrupting. When she said, when there's an infrastructure project in your town and there's creating jobs, folks, can you name me one infrastructure town in your town? I'm looking at the Rumble chat, at the YouTube chat. If you can name me one infrastructure project in your town, I'll be shocked. I'm in Dallas. I do this for a living. I don't know of any infrastructure projects in this town that I said, oh, yeah, way to go. I can't wait for this to get started. It's going to change my life. It's going to employ my neighbors. I don't know any. I'm sure they're out there. I just don't happen to know any of them. Folks, let me tell you about my friends over at CAUSANow.com. CAUSANow.com. This is an organization that is a buyer's club, okay? They have every household product you could possibly need. I mean this. Once you start buying from them, you will see that they are not only cheaper than Amazon and Target, but all the products are American made. So to me, being a member of CAUSANow.com/Grant, by the way, you're not only pushing back against the woke agenda, but you're pushing back against China. You're pushing back against the big box stores that are putting mom and pops out of business because CAUSANow.com deals with a American-owned company run by a family business that has been in operation for decades. I buy these products. I'm a member. I love them all. They are non-toxic. They also have this new beef product that is all natural beef, pasture-raised beef, no hormones in the beef. And when you want to talk about great steaks, CAUSANow.com has them, as well as all the other products you would need for your house, from cleaning supplies to hygiene, shampoos, you name it, even makeup. These guys are so great. CAUSANow.com. Push back against the woke agenda. Say no to China. Take market share away from our foreign enemies and start buying from this group. CAUSANow.com/Grant. You're not going to regret joining. Pay them a visit. They'll get right back to you. I promise you. All right. Back to Byron Donalds. He talked about this, and then he also talked about wages for Black Americans, an important topic when you're thinking about an election right now that may be decided by Black men.
One of the reasons why Black men in particular are starting to look at Donald Trump, because they're like, you know what? At least my pockets were good when he was president. The other stuff, that's other stuff.
Well, I think
I was making more money and my money was going further.
But I think they feel like that because of the stimulus checks and the PPP loans. But you got to look at what had to happen in order for that money to go out. Like you had to have a freaking pandemic where millions of people died.
But no,
that's not going to happen.
But
I hope not.
Oh no, I don't want it to happen either. But I want to be clear on this: wages adjusted for inflation before the COVID-19 pandemic was at the highest level for Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, white Americans in the history of the country. The wage gap, which gets talked about so much in our politics, the wage gap was actually decreasing under Donald Trump's presidency. And then the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and then COVID was just such a disaster for everybody. And now we have a situation where we have massive inflation in the country. Inflation today is like a little over 3% year over year. But when you take in the totality of these price increases, prices are up well over 20% in our country the last 4 years. That's real life stuff everybody's dealing with. And I think that's why Donald Trump is being more successful in some parts of the electorate than he has in the past.
So when you take that 20% number, and something's up far more than 20% since Joe Biden was put in office with Kamala Harris. Yes, we've seen wage increases, but it hasn't kept up with inflation. So you see your paycheck going up, But you're saying, well, listen, why am I losing money? I'm getting more money each month. Well, the reason being is, the money's going out faster. I said on my radio show this morning, I do radio out in Los Angeles. I live in Dallas, do radio in Los Angeles. And I said, I'm blessed because I don't have to look at prices in the grocery store. Okay, if I want the steak, I buy the steak. If I need yogurt, I'm not looking at the prices. Price of milk. If I need milk, I'm buying the milk. I couldn't tell you what the prices are. Call me an elitist, call me out of touch. I actually call me blessed that I'm put myself in a position where that's the case. I know for many Americans it's not, and I'm well aware of that. But here's where I do notice a difference. I don't not look at the final price and don't know how much I spent at the grocery store. I know exactly how much I spent at the grocery store, and I track every single expense that goes on my credit card every day. That's going into a QuickBooks file, and I'm tracking everything. And where I feel it is, as a single guy who has my son half the week, I would spend normally $110, $120 at the grocery store for our essential items. Now my bill's upwards of $200. Well, what changed? I'm not buying different stuff. He was still getting Prime energy drink or whatever, the sport drink that he loves. I'm still getting grapes and blueberries and bananas. I'm still buying my granola cereal and my Greek yogurt. I'm not buying anything new. And yet my bill is $200 instead of $110 or $120. That's where I feel it. That's over $300 a month more. I don't care who you are. $300 a month is a lot of money. And God forbid, you only make $40,000, $50,000 a year and your grocery bill's $300 more a month. That's going to crush you, man. That is going to crush you. Well, President Trump talked about this. All right, I'm going to get back to Charlemagne in a moment because he talked about a Trump ad that resonated. But I want to play President Trump's comments yesterday on a Kamala economy.
Your net worth to collapse, your tax bills to soar, and your jobs to totally disappear. That doesn't sound too good. Then vote for Kamala, your tax queen. She's a big taxer, and your taxes are going to go through the roof. But if you want Washington bureaucrats to keep their greedy hands out of your pockets and just leave my money alone. And if you want to have a tremendous history and legacy, and if you want to have a country that's strong and prosperous and great, you're going to vote for Trump, and we'll turn it around very fast. It's not going to be that easy, but we'll turn it around fast.
I think you can turn it around so fast, Mr. President. The reason being is just on expectations alone. So the markets will respond because they have an expectation of a lower regulatory environment, a lower tax structured environment. They know that you will drill, baby, drill. That's going to bring the cost of everything down. I'm not confident government spending will decrease. That's a big time problem for Washington that I'm not sure even President Trump can get under control. But if he was able to get government spending under control, man, you would bring inflation down. We get interest rates back down a little bit lower. Look, free money is not great either. So when interest rates were down around 2.5% for a 30-year mortgage, it's great for us buying a home, but it's not the best situation for all Americans. There's a sweet spot in there someplace. But I'll tell you, 8% interest rate is not good for Americans. This is why nobody's buying a home, because they can't afford to move into a home, so nobody's selling their home. So you have much fewer inventory on the market, which then, of course, drives the prices up. Supply and demand. Simple game. So that's President Trump there. Then you had Then you had Charlemagne talk about an ad that Trump had out. And he's giving Trump props here, because what Kamala Harris supports when it comes to transgender surgeries for inmates is insanity. And I think most people agree that that's insanity.
This weekend claiming the vice president supports funding gender transition surgeries for all prison inmates and migrants in the U.S. That was nuts. I don't know if it was.
I wouldn't say nuts, but that was crazy.
That was funny.
I don't know if it was the backdrop of football, but when you hear the narrator say Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners, that one line, I was like, hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
I definitely see that. She did
that. Ad was effective.
Kamala took a picture with a transgender, and it was just what they were saying, that it made it seem like Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money. That's what.
So what's interesting is My assumption and perception is, and from talking to people of color, they don't tolerate all this transgender nonsense. They're not on board with this radical LGBTQ mania stuff. All right? Not at all. It does not go to the heart of their core values. Many of these people are Christians. All right? So many of both Hispanics, blacks, strong Christians. And they don't tolerate this crazy transgender stuff, much less our tax money going to inmates to get sex change operations.
That's what it came across.
Yeah,
Isn't that what they're saying?
It literally said that Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners, and it talks about how she supports funding gender transition surgeries for all prison inmates and migrants in the United States. That ad was impactful. It was. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, damn.
Was it because it was during football?
Yes.
I think it was because it was during football.
But then last week, like the contrast of it.
Yes.
But then last week they had the same thing running on Tim Walsh and said he likes tampons in boys' bathrooms.
I would not have paid that. I don't think I would have paid that commercial no attention if it was any other time. But when you're watching football and you just what the hell? In between big commercials, they give you this?
Well, don't think it wasn't by design by the Trump campaign that they're going to play during a football game where mostly men are watching the idea that Kamala Harris supports transgender surgeries of our inmates and letting you pay for it. You want to see the commercial? I found it, and I figured I'll play it for you.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Do you know what happens? If you're transgender and you want a sex change operation, why not go out and commit a crime? Put you in prison. You don't have to pay for the operation. The state will pay for it. I mean, you're literally just going to have a crime wave of trannies. I mean it. A crime wave of trannies because she's going to pay for transgender surgeries. It's insanity, folks. And I mean total insanity. What a great move by the Trump campaign to put that in during a football game. Okay? I love that move. Love it. So as we go through this, folks, I want to go through an explanation of President Trump's tariffs, which I thought was really phenomenal, and why Trump's tariffs will actually work to get the economy going. And it was on CNBC of all places. But before I do that, I want to tell you about my friends over at energizedhealth.com/Grant. So I feel like I'm in some of the best shape of my life, and I'm 56 years old. About 2 months ago, I decided I want to get back in shape. And lo and behold, you know how God puts things in your life? God put Energized Health in my life. This is not a joke. They came on my Real America's Voice show and talked about intercellular hydration and how to lose weight and how to get healthy and get your mind working better, a total body transformation. And I said, I like these guys. Let me look at it. Well, they said, hey, how about we advertise on your podcast too? We'll give you access to the program. Try it out. Do you know? 6 weeks later, I was down 15 pounds. My skin had cleared up. I'm feeling great. Muscle mass increasing while my weight is decreasing. Okay. Yes, folks, that is 55 years old. I guess I am. So I am so grateful to the folks at energizedhealth.com. This intercellular hydration and getting my body hydrated at a cellular level so it can accept all of these nutrients like a sponge is fabulous, and I think it makes the weight gain even easier. The secret's in the simplicity of all this. Yes, I do a little workout, but it's nothing that kills me. Yes, I've changed the way I eat, but I still eat most of the same things. It's just the way I eat them that is a little bit different. I'm telling you, folks, if you want to tighten up, if you want to lose 200 pounds, if you want to lose 20 pounds, energizedhealth.com/Grant can help you do it. Cellular hydration, okay? energizedhealth.com/Grant. You will not regret it. These people are great. There's coaching individual coaching. There's recipes involved. There's daily motivational videos. There's an app. There's everything is there. You will be set up for success. In fact, they have a 100% money back guarantee, and their success rate is like 99%, something like that. So it was easy for me. I mean, literally 15 pounds. I wasn't even that out of shape. 15 pounds in 6 weeks. I was 190. Now I'm 100 and, I was 200 pounds. Now I'm 185 pounds. It's freaking great. Greatness. EnergizeHealth.com/Grant. All right. Let me get to this clip of the tariffs explained. This is one of the best explanations of the Trump tariffs that I've seen. And I saw it on CNBC of all places. Listen.
You think you're going to see tariffs across the board of 20%?
I think we should put tariffs on stuff we make and not put tariffs on stuff we don't make. It's pretty simple. And of course, it's a bargaining chip. We can't sell a Ford or GM in Europe. You go to Europe, you can't sell a Ford or GM. Why? There's 100% tariffs. How about in Japan? 100% tariffs. So do you think if we said, we're going to tariff you the way you tariff us, do you think they're going to allow Mercedes and all these Japanese companies and Porsches and BMWs to all of a sudden have 100% tariffs in America? Of course not. They're going to come and negotiate, and their tariffs are going to come down. And finally, Ford and General Motors are going to be able to sell in these places.
How's that sound, Andrew? That sounds...
Of course they're going to come down. Of course. This is just negotiating.
It absolutely makes sense. If you do it strategically, if it's across the board, it creates a real problem. And the question is whether you believe the president is going to do it strategically or across the board. He keeps saying it across the board.
Well, across the board for foreign goods, specifically from China. And so this, again, the gentleman explaining from Cantor Fitzgerald, who was explaining how this works, it's a businessman's mindset. You're going to tax me, I'm going to tax you. You don't want to get taxed? Well, then you bring down the taxes you put on me. It's a give and take. It's a negotiation. Think about that. If the taxes, the tariffs on a Ford pickup truck in France come down, you'll sell more Ford pickup trucks in France. That helps American-made companies, American-made products. So I love this idea. And I wasn't always a tariffs guy. I wanted free trade. No tariffs on anybody. Trade back and forth. The problem is you can't have free trade without fair trade, and fair isn't fair anymore when it comes to trade across the globe. They're hammering us. They're manipulating currencies. They're putting tariffs on us where we don't put tariffs on them. It's not a level playing field. Level the playing field. Now you level the playing field, then everything becomes a little bit more fair. Now you get to compete for business. Everybody benefits.
Well, when you're running for office, you make broad statements so people understand you. Right. Okay? Tariffs are an amazing tool by the president to use. They're an amazing tool, but he understands don't tariff stuff we don't make. Right? If we don't make it and you want to buy it, I don't want to put the price up there. It's pointless. But use tariffs to build in America. If we want to make it in America, tariff it. Or if we're competing with it, tariff it. But you got to remember, we need to protect the American worker. Finally, someone's going to protect the American worker. And Donald Trump is here to protect the American worker.
Do you think we make a lot of money in tariffs, or if they're used as negotiating tactics? Look, tariffs will come down there. We're not going to have super high tariffs here either. There's not going to be a big pot of money at the end of the day.
I love that story. So which is it? Do we make a lot of money on tariffs, or we bring productivity here, and we drive up our workers here? So it's a win-win scenario. I like both of them. I think what's going to happen is we'll make a bunch of money on the tariffs, but mostly everybody else is going to negotiate with us, and we will be more fair. In 1948, right, we came up with something called the Marshall Plan, right?
You see what he just used the term? He used the term that I just used, fair. And fair is everything when it comes to trade.
Germany and Japan were destroyed after World War II, and we wanted to export our economy to them. So we made a rule. They could tariff us, and we won't tariff them. So they can rebuild.
This is the best explanation I've heard of.
So they can rebuild their economy. We rebuilt their economy using something called the Marshall Plan. Yeah. Our economy is so awesome that we'll use it to help you rebuild. When should that have ended? What do you think, 1980? right? 1985. I mean, why 40 years are Japan and Germany and all of Europe still tariffing the heck out of our auto industry, tariffing the heck out of our furniture industry? Do you realize all your furniture you're buying that's made foreign? It seems crazy. Why? It's because they tariff us and we don't tariff them. It's so obvious.
Because for too long, America has been suckers. Think about the money we give to foreign nations. The foreign aid. Does anybody give us money? When we're struggling during COVID, any of the other countries chalk up, oh, you know what, America's suffering. Let's give them some money. No, nobody ever gives us money. We've got the United Nations in New York. We pay for freaking most of it. We've got all these other countries that are just living off of us. We can't afford it anymore. We can't afford to support other countries. So that's got to end. This tariff situation, you're going to tariff us, we will tariff you. You put zero tariffs on our goods, we'll put zero tariffs on yours. It's that easy of a deal, by the way. And you know what you say to France? You're going to tax our cars 100%. We're going to tax your wine 100%. All right? Because I don't know how many French cars are coming into the United States. So we'll tax your wine, tariff your wine. I'm sorry to all you wine drinkers out there, but that's what we have to do. And here's what will happen, just as this gentleman said. They'll negotiate. We'll negotiate. Everything comes back down. Next thing you know, we're selling more cars over there. They're selling more wine here, and everybody's happy. It is that easy. That's why we need President Trump. He makes it easy. These Democrats, though, make everything very difficult, but it's all by design. It really is. Here's what else is easy. Man, if you live down south where this hurricane hit, I feel sorry for you. My prayers are with you. I hope you have one of these, a medical emergency kit with all of these prescription medications in it. This is from the wellness company. TWC.health/grant is where I want you to go to get one of these. Use the promo code GRANT. You've got 8 of the most popular medications in this, all specifically formulated for you, okay? And you got amoxicillin, a Z-Pack, ivermectin, too, in these kits. It's very hard to get in some parts of the country. But you've got this port shutdown now that we're looking at. We get prescription medications from China, except like 60 to 90% of our prescription medications come from China. We could see shortages. Get one of these kits now before it's too late. Even the ingredients in many of the drugs that we make here in the United States comes from China. Not to mention natural disaster can happen. TWC.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT and get one of these kits. I've got food. I've got water. I've got ammunition. I've got a power supply. Now I have prescription medications. This will save your family's life. Wouldn't you hate it? You regret it. Boy, I should have gotten that. You know, your kid has some kind of infection and you need antibiotics right away, but there's no drugstores open because of a natural disaster. Get the kit. Small price to pay for a peace of mind. Rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. TWC.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT. And I promise you, you won't regret it. Real America's Voice show tonight, folks. We're going to go through a lot of Israel stuff tonight. Are we on the brink of war, a World War III? Quite possibly. I'm going to give you a little hint, though. I'm going to explain tonight why I don't think that's going to happen. And we'll go through more of the debate stuff tonight on the show. We got a big Real America's Voice show tonight. I can't wait to bring it to you at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Real America's Voice. Folks, you guys are the best. Stinchfield's Army rolls because of all of you, everybody watching on Rumble. Thank you. Facebook, Getter, YouTube, Twitter, you name it. We're there. At least we try to be. So we appreciate you. God bless all of you. Stinchfield's Army rolls.